Commander Park Jin floated in the captain's chair of the Han River, Earth's newest deep space research vessel. The ship was massive, but out here in the endless black between stars it felt tiny. Jin pressed a button and the main screen showed their current position, drifting through the convergence border zones far from home. "Commander, another message from the Zalari High Command," called Lieutenant Kim Hana from her station. She was young, maybe 25, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "They're telling us to ignore the signal. Again." Jin rubbed his tired face. For 3 long months, that same mysterious transmission had been coming from somewhere in the outer rim. Every day, radio telescopes across known space picked it up. Every day, the great alien civilizations of the convergence dismissed it as noise. The Zalari, masters of quantum communication, called it cosmic static. These beings communicated through folded spacetime itself. To them, radio waves were like smoke signals, primitive and worthless. The Vorthok were worse. Their crystal-based minds shared thoughts instantly across light years. When Jin had asked the Vorthok ambassador about the signal, the alien had actually laughed. Well, its mouth didn't move, but the sound that came from its throat crystal was definitely laughter. "What about the Helicon Empire?" Jin asked. Hana checked her screen. They filed their report yesterday. Quote, "Primitive interference from failing ancient technology, not worth investigation." Jin sighed. The Helicon were probably right. They usually were. Their civilization was so old that when Earth's dinosaurs had ruled the planet, the Helicon were already building cities that spanned entire continents. But something bothered Jin about this signal. Maybe it was human stubbornness, or maybe it was the way the transmission seemed to pulse with purpose. "Where's Dr. Lee?" he asked. "Still in Signal Analysis Lab 7, Hana replied, concern creeping into her voice. "He hasn't left in 72 hours. He's surviving on coffee and energy bars." Jin stood up. "I'll check on him." The corridors of the Han River hummed with quiet efficiency. Humans from Earth, Korean mining colonies, and orbital platforms worked side by side. Pictures from home-decorated personal quarters, Seoul's skyline, rice fields in Jeolla province, the terraformed gardens of Mars Colony 6. Lab 7 was a mess. Dr. Lee Do-hyun sat surrounded by floating holographic displays, each showing different views of the mysterious signal. Empty coffee cups drifted in the low gravity, held in place by magnetic coasters. Lee's hair stuck up at odd angles, and his eyes were bloodshot. "Dr. Lee," Jin said softly. Lee turned, blinking as if seeing Jin for the first time. "Commander, perfect timing. Look at this." The displays shifted, showing wave patterns that looked like mountain ranges of light. "Everyone sees noise," Lee said, gesturing wildly. "But watch this." The patterns changed, and suddenly Jin could see it. A rhythm, a purpose. Numbers that repeated in precise ways. "It's not random," Lee continued, excitement making his voice shake. "See these spikes? They match prime number sequences. And here?" He pointed to another display. "Mathematical constants. Pi, Euler's, constant, the golden ratio." Jin stared. "Nature doesn't make perfect mathematics." "Exactly." Lee laughed, but it sounded a bit mad. "This isn't coming from a star or a pulsar or quantum decay. Someone, or something, is deliberately sending this." Jin felt cold despite the ship's warmth. "Have you told the Convergence Council?" Lee's face fell. "I sent the analysis yesterday." The Thurix ambassador responded in 30 seconds. She said humans see patterns where none exist because our minds are charmingly primitive. The insult stung, but Jin had heard worse. Humanity had only joined the Convergence 73 years ago, after discovering faster-than-light travel. In galactic terms, they were babies. Most alien species treated them with the patient condescension reserved for cute but slow children. "What do you think we should do?" Jin asked. Lee's eyes lit up again. "We investigate. The signal is coming from the outer rim, about 3 weeks' travel from here. Every chart marks that area as uninhabitable due to radiation, but our ships can handle radiation." Jin nodded slowly. The Han River was an exploration vessel. Their mission was to study phenomena other species ignored. But disobeying a convergence directive could mean trouble. Hana's voice crackled through the comm system. "Commander, incoming priority message from Earth Command." Jin made his way back to the bridge. On the main screen, Admiral Su Kyung-mi's stern face appeared. She looked tired. The weight of representing humanity in a galaxy of ancient aliens showed in every line on her face. "Commander Park," she began, her voice formal but warm. "The Convergence Council has officially classified the Outer Rim signal as non-threatening cosmic noise. You are ordered to resume your scheduled survey of the Tau Ceti system." Jin felt the bridge crew's eyes on him. They'd all been wondering what they'd do if this order came. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "Dr. Lee has discovered mathematical patterns in the signal. It appears to be artificially created." Admiral Su was quiet for a moment. Then she leaned forward and Jin caught a hint of something in her eyes. "Dr. Lee is a brilliant scientist," she said. "However, the Convergence has made its decision. We are the junior members of this alliance, Commander. We follow orders." The transmission ended, but not before Jin noticed something. Admiral Su had emphasized certain words, follow orders. But she'd also mentioned Lee's brilliance. Was she telling them to obey, or to do what they thought was right? Jin looked around the bridge. These people had volunteered for deep space, exploration, leaving families and homeworlds behind. They were here because they believed in discovery, in pushing the boundaries of human knowledge. "Hana," he said finally, "plot a course for the Tau Ceti system." Disappointment flashed across her face, but she nodded. "Yes, sir." Jin waited until she'd entered the coordinates, then added, "But first we need to investigate a navigation anomaly near the Outer Rim. Shouldn't take more than a few weeks." Hana's fingers paused over her controls, then she smiled. "Understood, Commander. Investigating anomaly." The Han River turned in space, its engines igniting. Earth fell further behind as they headed toward the source of the signal, the place where every map said nothing could survive. Jin settled back in his command chair, watching the stars wheel past. Maybe the aliens were right. Maybe they were about to waste weeks chasing static. But if they were wrong, if someone was really trying to communicate. He thought about Earth, hanging blue and green in the dark. If something threatened the galaxy, wouldn't humanity want someone to listen? Wouldn't they want someone to care enough to investigate, even when everyone else said it was pointless? The Han River had been traveling for 12 days when Dr. Lee Do-hyun finally cracked the code completely. The mess of waveforms suddenly made perfect sense, like a jigsaw puzzle clicking into place. "This is incredible," he whispered, staring at his screens in the ship's analysis lab. His hands were shaking as he ran the data through his computers for the 5th time. The results were always the same. He grabbed his tablet and rushed to the bridge, nearly knocking over Lieutenant Choi Junho in the corridor. "Sorry," he called back, not stopping. The bridge was busy with normal ship operations. Commander Park Jin was reviewing supply inventories while Lieutenant Kim Ha-na monitored long-range sensors. The steady hum of the ship's engines created a comfortable background noise. "Commander," Lee burst in out of breath, "I know what the signal is." Everyone turned to look at him. Lee's wild hair and excited eyes made him look like a mad scientist from old Earth movies, but his brilliant mind had earned respect from the entire crew. "Show us," Jin said, standing up. The main screen filled with Lee's analysis, where everyone had seen random static before. Now there were clear patterns highlighted in bright colors. "It's not just mathematics," Lee explained, gesturing at the display. "The signal contains star charts. Look here." He pointed to a section of the pattern. "These coordinates match known pulsars in our galaxy, and here, planetary alignments. Someone is using mathematical constants as a base language to describe their location." Hana leaned forward in her chair. "But who would use such primitive methods?" "Someone who knows their technology is failing," Lee said. "The signal is degrading. Whatever's sending this is old, really old, and it's dying." Jin studied the data thoughtfully. "Any idea what they're trying to tell us?" Lee's expression grew serious. "That's the strangest part. The signal isn't just saying we're here, it's saying danger coming, over and over again. A chill ran through the bridge crew. In space, danger could mean many things. Black holes, supernovas, hostile, aliens. None of them were good. How far are we from the source? Jin asked. Hana checked her console. 6 days at current speed, sir. But we're entering the radiation zone marked on all star charts. The readings are getting stronger. Jin made his decision. Continue course, but raise shields and begin radiation protocols. 3 days later, warnings were sounding throughout the ship. The radiation levels were unlike anything they'd encountered before. It wasn't the clean energy of a star or the chaotic emissions of a nebula. This felt wrong, like it was eating at the fabric of space itself. Sensors are starting to struggle, reported sensor operator Yoon Min-seo from her station. The radiation is interfering with our equipment. Sir, Hana added, I'm picking up something massive on long-range scanners, but the readings are weird. Jin moved to her station. The sensor data showed a huge structure, but it seemed to flicker in and out of existence. Could it be the radiation affecting our sensors? I don't think so, Min-seo said slowly. I've never seen anything like this. It's like the object exists partially in our dimension and partially somewhere else. 2 days later, they found the source of the signal. The entire bridge fell silent as the massive construct appeared on their main screen. It was impossible to describe. Part building, part machine, part living organism. Crystalline towers twisted into the void, connected by bridges of what looked like solidified light. The whole structure was embedded in a cluster of asteroids as if it had crashed there eons ago. By all the stars, whispered engineer Choi Jun-ho. How old is this thing? Lee was frantically working at his analysis station. The materials, I can't identify most of them, but carbon dating on the asteroids shows impact patterns from at least 10 million years ago. The structure pulsed with dying light, like a heart beating its last beats. Sections were clearly damaged, with entire towers dark and cold, but some parts still glowed with an inner fire. I'm reading life signs, Min-seo announced, excitement and fear mixing in her voice. But not like anything in our databases. It's not organic life as we know it. Jin stood before the main screen staring at the impossible structure. Every instinct told him to maintain distance, to study it from afar. But the signal was growing stronger, more urgent. Commander, Hana said softly, I'm picking up a new transmission. It's coming directly from the construct. On screen, Jin ordered. The static-filled background noise was replaced by something clearer, still alien, but with an unmistakable sense of intelligence behind it. It wasn't language as humans understood it, but there was meaning there. They know we're here, Lee said, his voice full of wonder. They're trying to communicate. Jin made a decision that would change everything. Prepare a shuttle team. We're going aboard. Hana turned in her chair. Sir, the radiation levels. Our suits can handle it for limited exposure, Jin interrupted. Dr. Lee, you're with me. We need to understand what they're trying to tell us. Commander, Min-seo called. Out. I'm detecting movement within the structure. Whatever's in there is coming to meet us. As they prepared for the most important first contact in human history, Jin couldn't help but think about the irony. The Convergence, with all its advanced civilizations, had dismissed this signal as noise. It had taken humanity, the newcomers, the primitives, to recognize it for what it was, a desperate cry for help from something unimaginably ancient. The shuttle bay doors opened, and their small craft launched toward the mysterious construct. Behind them, the Han River maintained position, its sensors recording everything. As they approached the structure, Jin saw openings appearing in its surface, not mechanical doors, but passages that seemed to form in the crystalline material itself, like it was growing portals just for them. The signal was growing stronger, more urgent. Whatever waited inside had been trying to warn the galaxy about something for a very long time, and humanity was finally ready to listen. The shuttle moved into one of the glowing passages, and the real discovery was about to begin. The shuttle moved through a tunnel that seemed to be made of living crystal. Commander Park Jin gripped his seat as walls flowed past them, shifting and changing like water frozen in time. Dr. Lee Do-hyun sat beside him, his instruments recording everything. "The walls are reacting to our presence," Lee whispered, watching. His scanner readings jump wildly. "This isn't passive matter, it's aware." They emerged into a chamber so vast their lights couldn't find the ceiling. The shuttle's computer calculated the space as being larger than Seoul's entire downtown district, carved from what appeared to be a single piece of crystal. "Landing platform detected," announced shuttle pilot Kim Yoo-jin, her voice steady despite the impossible surroundings. "It's forming beneath us." As if responding to her words, the floor below them raised up, creating a perfect landing pad. They set down gently, the shuttle system still working despite the strange environment. "Atmosphere is breathable," Lee reported, checking his readings twice. "Oxygen levels are actually perfect for humans. That's statistically impossible." Jin made his decision. "Keep the suit sealed anyway. Let's see what's out there." They stepped through the airlock into a world that defied understanding. The chamber was filled with soft, pulsing light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. In the distance, structures that looked like buildings or perhaps organs grew from the floor and walls. Everything was connected by streams of light that flowed like rivers in the air. "Commander," Lee said, his voice tight with excitement, "I'm getting energy readings unlike anything we've seen. This place is ancient, but it's still very much alive." They hadn't walked 10 meters when they saw them. The first architect appeared as a shimmer in the air, like heat waves rising from summer pavement. Then it solidified into something between a geometric pattern and a storm cloud made of stars. It moved toward them with flowing grace, growing more solid with each step. "Stay calm," Jin whispered to his team, though his own heart was pounding. No sudden movements. More architects materialized around them. They were beautiful in a way that hurt to look at directly. Their forms shifted constantly, sometimes appearing as beings of pure light, sometimes as complex, crystalline structures, sometimes as patterns that seemed to exist in more dimensions than human eyes could see. The first one approached until it was only a few feet away. Jin could feel power radiating from it, but not threatening power. It felt like standing near a waterfall or watching sunset from a mountaintop. Then it spoke, not with sound but directly into their minds. "Welcome, young ones who listen. We are the builders of this place, the architects of what was. We have waited so long for someone to hear our warning." Lee stumbled backward. "It's in my head, but not invasive. Like someone gently placing thoughts alongside my own." The architect's form rippled with what might have been sadness. "We have tried to reach the others, the Zalari with their folded space, the Vorthak with their crystal thoughts, the Helicon with their ancient pride, but they cannot hear us. Their minds have grown beyond our ability to touch." Another architect moved closer. This one felt older, more tired. "You use the old ways, radio waves, mathematics carved from sound. We remember these methods from when we were as you are now. This is why we can speak with you." Jin found his voice. "How long have you been trying to send your message?" "Millennia. Since before your star was born. We have watched civilizations rise and fall, each growing too sophisticated to hear the simple truths. Images suddenly filled their minds, not painful, but overwhelming. They saw the architects as they once were, beings of flesh and bone on worlds of purple grass under green suns. They saw cities that touched the clouds and machines that moved between stars like thoughts. Then they saw the transformation. The architects had transcended physical form eons ago, becoming beings of pure energy and consciousness. They had thought themselves safe beyond the reach of physical death. They were wrong. "Show them," the eldest architect communicated to the others. The chamber around them changed. The walls became transparent, revealing the true extent of the structure. It was a ship, a world ship that had once carried billions across the void. But now it was broken, dying, held together by will and failing technology. "We fled here from our home beyond the edge of your galaxy," the first architect explained. Something came to our realm, something that devours entire galaxies. We called it the Void Swarm. Clouds of living darkness that consume everything, leaving not even empty space behind. New images flooded their minds. They saw entire star systems being drained of light, planets crumbling to dust, even space itself seeming to collapse inward. A darkness that moved between galaxies like a plague, leaving absolute nothingness in its wake. It consumed the galaxy we came from. The architect continued. Then it moved to another, and another. We escaped, barely carrying the knowledge of how it might be stopped. Lee's mind reeled with the implications. How do you stop something like that? We learned to create barriers that the swarm cannot pass, shields that protect the very fabric of reality itself. But these defenses require cooperation between many species, each contributing their unique knowledge and capability. Jin felt sick. And you've been trying to warn the convergence? For so long. But each species dismisses us. They cannot perceive our signals, or they think themselves too advanced to listen. Only your people heard. Only humans were willing to investigate what others called noise. The eldest architect moved closer, and Jin could feel its desperation. The swarm has finished with the galaxy called Andromeda. Now it turns its attention here. You have perhaps a century before it arrives in your galaxy. If the civilizations do not unite, do not share their knowledge freely, everything will be consumed. The weight of this knowledge crushed down on them. Jin looked at his small team in this impossible place, carrying news that could save or damn their entire galaxy. We will share our knowledge with you, the architect promised. The plans for the barriers, the weapons that can wound the swarm. But it will take all species working together, Zalari, Vorthak, Helicon, human, and others. Can your people convince them? Jin thought of the Convergence Council, of the pride and ancient prejudices of the alien civilizations. Then he thought of Earth, of all the worlds humanity called home. We'll find a way, he said simply. Humanity is good at making people listen when they need to. The architect shimmered with what felt like hope for the first time in millennia. The architect's form shimmered with urgency as it continued to share its ancient knowledge. Commander Park Jin felt his mind stretching to understand concepts that existed beyond normal physics. We must show you what comes, the entity communicated. Your people need to know exactly what they face. The chamber around them transformed again. The crystal walls became a three-dimensional display showing the vastness of space. Jin watched in horror as galaxies appeared like distant islands in an ocean of stars. This was Andromeda, the architect explained, highlighting a spiral galaxy that looked much like their own Milky Way. Watch. At first, Jin saw nothing wrong. The galaxy spun peacefully, its arms of stars creating a beautiful cosmic dance. Then he noticed a dark spot at the edge of the display. It was small, barely visible. The swarm, another architect whispered into their minds. It begins always, at the edges. The dark spot grew. As it expanded, stars simply vanished. Not exploded, not collapsed, they just stopped existing. The darkness spread like ink in water, consuming everything in its path. Dr. Lee Do-hyun made a strangled sound. It's not just eating matter, it's unmaking space itself. Yes, the eldest architect confirmed. The swarm doesn't simply destroy, it returns everything to the void that existed before creation. Even we do not fully understand its nature. They watched in terrible fascination as the darkness consumed Andromeda's outer arms. Billions of stars, uncountable civilizations, all reduced to nothingness in what seemed like moments but must have taken millions of years. We barely escaped, the first architect told them. Our entire species, millions of worlds, countless individuals, reduced to the few hundred who managed to flee in ships like this one. Jin felt a cold hand grip his heart. How long do we have? The display shifted, showing their own galaxy with a timer floating beside it. The swarm finished, with Andromeda 3,000 years ago. It travels between galaxies, but such journeys take time even for it. Our calculations show it will reach the outer stars of your galaxy in approximately 100 of your years. Lieutenant Kim Hana spoke for the first time since entering the ship. Commander, we need to see the defensive plans. The architect responded immediately. The space around them filled with complex blueprints, not drawn on paper or screen, but hanging in the air as three-dimensional models. These are the void barriers, it explained. Shields that can protect star systems from the swarm's advance, but they require specific technologies from different species. Lee studied the floating plans, his enhanced mental implants working overtime to understand them. This component, here, it needs Zalari quantum crystallization techniques, and this section requires Vorthak telepathic resonance networks. Precisely, the architect confirmed. The Helicon mastery of exotic matter is essential here. The Thorax understanding of dimensional physics is needed there. Each species has developed technologies that seem unrelated to combat, but together, they form a complete defense. Jin felt overwhelmed. What about weapons? Can we fight this thing? The swarm cannot be destroyed in the traditional sense, the eldest architect replied sadly. But it can be wounded, driven back, forced to retreat. We have weapons designs as well. New blueprints appeared, devices that looked like nothing in human military arsenals. Some appeared to be structures the size of space stations. Others seemed to be modifications to existing technology. Yuri, species specializes in directed energy weapon, an architect noted. These can be enhanced to wound the swarm, but they must be powered by fusion sources beyond anything currently built. Hana was taking detailed recordings with her equipment. Commander, I'm getting all of this, but I don't understand half of it. We're going to need the galaxy's best scientists working together. That is the challenge, where the architect said gravely. In our time, our species were too proud to share their greatest secrets. Each believed their technology was superior. By the time we realized we needed each other, it was almost too late. Jin walked through the holographic blueprints, trying to imagine the scale of cooperation required. The convergence could barely agree on trade routes, let alone sharing their most advanced military technology. There is more you must know, the first architect said. The swarm is not merely destructive, it learns. Each galaxy it consumes adds to its knowledge. The defenses that worked against it in our realm may not work perfectly here. New images flooded their minds, battles in deep space, energy weapons that tore holes in reality itself, entire fleets of strange ships disappearing into darkness. The architects showed them their own final battle, desperate and futile. We held for a century before falling back. One communicated. But we bought time for knowledge to survive, time for warning to reach those who would come after. Lee was pale but determined. What about the humans? Our technology is considered primitive by convergence standards. What can we contribute? The architects seemed to brighten, their forms becoming more solid. Your people have something the others have lost, adaptability. The Zalari follow ancient protocols. The Vorthak think in predetermined patterns. The Helicon are bound by tradition. But humans improvise, create new solutions from nothing. This will be crucial. Jin felt a surge of pride mixed with terror. We're really the only ones who can unite the galaxy? Not the only ones, the architect corrected. But perhaps the only ones willing to try. The others see your species as young and reckless. They do not realize that youth sometimes brings courage that age has forgotten. The chamber began to change again, the blueprints fading. The architect's forms became less solid, more distant. We grow weak, the eldest admitted. This ship, these forms, we maintain them through will alone. Soon we will join the void ourselves. But now, the knowledge is yours. Jin felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. Not just for humanity, but for every living thing in the galaxy. We won't let you down, he promised. We believe this, the architect replied, its form flickering like a candle in wind. Go now. Return to your people. The galaxy must be warned. As they walked back to their shuttle, Jin's mind raced with everything they'd learned. How do you convince ancient civilizations to trust their enemies? How do you make proud species share their most guarded secrets? The shuttle lifted off from the dying ship, carrying the most important cargo in galactic history, the knowledge needed to save everything they'd ever known. Back on the Han River, as they prepared data packets for transmission to Earth and the convergence, Jin looked out at the stars. Somewhere among them, darkness was coming, but humanity had always been good at shouting warnings that others didn't want to hear. Now they just had to get everyone to listen before it was too late. The Convergence Council chamber looked like a giant spiral shell made of crystal and light. Representatives from 12 civilizations sat in floating pods arranged in concentric circles, each species maintaining their traditional distance from the others. At the center, a holographic display waited to show humanity's urgent message. Commander. Park Jin stood before them, feeling incredibly small. Behind him, Admiral Su Kyung-mi and Dr. Lee Do-hyun prepared to support his presentation. The weight of the galaxy's future pressed down on his shoulders. The Helicon Prime Minister spoke first, her ancient voice carrying across the chamber through translation crystals. Humans seek our time for what purpose? We have dismissed this signal matter weeks ago. With respect, Jin began, his voice steady despite his nerves. The Convergence dismissed it without proper investigation. We went to the source and found something that changes everything. He activated the display. Images from the architect ship filled the chamber, the massive dying construct, the energy beings, the terrible visions of galaxies consumed by darkness. The Zalari ambassador made a sound like wind chimes in a storm. Impossible fabrications. Energy beings of such antiquity could not exist in our dimension. Dr. Lee stepped forward. The mathematical proofs are included in our data packet. The signal's quantum signatures match no known natural phenomena. These beings are real. The Vorthak representative's crystals flashed red with disdain. Young species see intelligence in shadows. Your primitive radio detected only electrical storms. Jin felt his temper rise but forced it down. Then explain the star charts included in the signal. Explain the perfect mathematical constants we decoded. The display shifted to show the architect's blueprints for the void barriers. The chamber fell silent as representatives realized what they were seeing. By the eternal flame, whispered the Thurex delegate. These designs, they incorporate technologies from all our species. The eldest architect's final message played through the chamber's speakers. The swarm consumed Andromeda. Now it comes for you. Unite or perish together. For the first time in Convergence history, the chamber was completely silent. The Helicon Prime Minister finally spoke. Assuming this threat exists, why should we trust designs from dead civilizations? Our own defenses are sufficient. Admiral Su stood up. Your defenses work against known threats. This is something entirely new. The architects fought the swarm for a century before falling back. They learned what works and what doesn't. The Zalari ambassador's form shimmered with doubt. Cooperation at this level requires sharing our most guarded secrets. Quantum crystallization techniques have never left Zalari space. Because you've never faced extinction before, Jin replied. The swarm doesn't care about your trade secrets. It will consume you all the same. The Vorthak representative pulsed with anger. Humans presume to lecture us about cooperation? Your species wars among itself constantly. And that's exactly why we know cooperation works, Lee interjected. Earth's nations once hated each other, but when faced with threats, we united. The moon plague of 2157, the asteroid impact of 2201, we survived because we worked together. A new voice entered the discussion. The rarely heard representative of the Cry Collective spoke from their floating pod. The mathematical models are troubling. If accurate, conventional defenses will fail completely. Other species began murmuring among themselves. The chamber's translation systems worked overtime as 12 different languages filled the air with debate and calculation. The Therex delegate raised a tentacle for attention. Assuming we agree to this cooperation, what role would humans play? You lack the technology to contribute significantly. Jin smiled for the first time during the meeting. We contribute what others have forgotten, the ability to connect people who don't want to work together. Humans have been diplomats between species since we joined the convergence. Admiral Su activated another display. We propose a new structure, joint research station staffed by all species. Shared technology development with equal access to results. Command rotation between species to prevent any one civilization from dominating. Unacceptable, the Helicon Prime Minister declared. Our people do not serve under alien commanders. Then your people will die under alien executioners, Jin shot back. The swarm doesn't recognize rank or species. It consumes everything equally. Hours passed as debates raged. Some species threatened to leave. Others demanded impossible guarantees. Through it all, the human delegation stayed calm, mediating between ancient enemies. Lieutenant Kim Hana whispered to Jin during a break. Think we're getting through to them? He watched the Zalari ambassador actually speaking directly to the Vorthak representative, something that hadn't happened in centuries. Maybe. They're talking to each other instead of just talking at each other. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. The Cry Collective, usually silent observers, presented their analysis to the chamber. Mathematical probability of success using individual species defenses, less than 2%, they announced. Probability using combined technologies as shown in architect designs, 67%. Recommendation, immediate implementation of cooperation protocols. The cold mathematical truth cut through cultural prejudices and ancient pride. One by one, species began agreeing to limited cooperation agreements. The Helicon would share exotic matter production techniques. The Zalari would provide quantum crystallization methods. The Vorthak agreed to telepathic network integration. Each concession felt like pulling teeth, but progress was being made. We will need a neutral location for the primary facility, the Therex delegate pointed out. No species home system. Jin smiled again. How about the outer rim? Near where the architects waited for someone to listen? 3 months later, construction began on the largest cooperative project in galactic history. The Unity Station took shape near the ancient construct, its design incorporating elements from every convergent species. Jin stood in the station's observation deck, watching Zalari engineers work alongside Vorthak technicians, while Helicon supervisors coordinated with human project managers. It shouldn't have worked. Too many egos, too many conflicting methods. But it did work, because everyone knew what waited in the dark between galaxies. Dr. Lee joined him at the viewport. The first defense platforms will be online in 2 years, the full barrier system in 5. Think it'll be enough? Jin asked. Lee was quiet for a moment. 67% chance, according to the Cree. Better odds than we had before. Jin nodded, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, the void swarm was coming. But the galaxy was finally listening, finally working together. It had taken humanity's stubborn refusal to ignore desperate calls for help to make it happen. Now they could only hope it wasn't too late. The first joint defense fleet launched 3 months ahead of schedule, crewed by representatives from every convergent species. As it headed for the galaxy's edge to establish the first warning posts, Jin felt something he hadn't expected. Hope. Humanity had always been good at bringing others together when the stakes were high enough. Now they just had to prove that united. The galaxy could face anything, even the darkness that devoured worlds. The real test was coming, but they wouldn't face it alone.